just want to talk to you guys. That's my biggest issue. I just want to chat and have fun, and that's
I
me
hear
though. But we will at the end. So I'll do some teaching first. That never goes good when I talk too much and then we don't get anything in. Okay, so my screen is being shared and we're going to go through the lesson first. I want to go back one. This is too quick. Let's see. It's going the wrong way. There we go. Okay. Sorry. I'm going to stop share for a sec. Hold on. Almost there. Technical difficulties. Almost there. Almost there. Here we go. Back to it. So sorry, ladies. Um, Start from beginning. Okay, now let me share again. Tab. All right. Can you guys see my screen okay? Okay. I almost hate to go into presenter mode because it's like gonna, but I think I can do it this time. Start from beginning. There we go. Okay, so I was like, you know what? We should do a quick play on words to overcome self-sabotage and emotional eating, but that's not the only title. It's more to cue into what your subconscious beliefs are about food, about weight loss, about like all these stories. And I think it was perfect this morning in our networking group that I was in with Laura. We were talking about the quote. The end quote was an Einstein quote, and it was that everything is truly an illusion, right? And the biggest illusion is what we see in front of us. And so that's such a kind of crazy quote and thing to say, but it's all made up. And so, whether or not we started piecing things together, usually from the moment we're born until we become, we remember our memories, we're putting things together and our brain is made to connect dots. So it always wants to assume, it always wants to make sense of things and make stories. So one thing connects to another, connects to another, connects to another, and it creates our reality. So reality being an illusion is kind of the truth. Does that resonate with anyone, or have you ever thought about that
Can I
before?
share a thought about that?
Yes, I'd love it, Laura. Yes.
Um, so I have thought about it, and that is a thought that has driven me crazy ever since I heard it. Because this post sitting right here is made out of wood, and that is not an illusion in my mind. I think what I finally figured out was that it's not an illusion, but what it is more of being human beings and having only our five senses working. It is a limited perspective of what something actually is, and that in most cases, there's probably more to that something than as a human being we can understand, right? So people say everything vibrates, everything is vibrating. We, in our visual, can't see this vibrating or a solid surface vibrating, but in fact, science says it is, right? And so it's only our limitation. It's not really that it's an illusion in the sense that it doesn't exist, right? Or that it's something not real. And I'm just saying that because that helps me. It's really a limited perspective that we bring to the table with something rather than something isn't real. So that's just a thought from
Mm.
my crazy position.
That is beautiful, Laura. And so one way that I think of it too is if you think of your dog, right? Because like we were talking this morning about our dogs, and it's because one of the girls is a dog trainer, and she has talked about how, your dog goes to the window and it starts barking, at things, and you're like, that dog out there isn't coming in here. Like we know from our senses and our ability to kind of at a higher brain thinking, then the dog just sits in the amygdala. So they're in that fight or flight. And so they have a less developed sensory in some ways than we do, but also heightened in other ways. But that being said, we can look at the dog and say, like, oh, you just can't reason it out, you know? And I think that's exactly what Laura's saying. There's something above us that can say, they don't see the vibration, they don't see the manifestation of their thoughts, how they brought those atoms together to create that hard thing in front of them, you know? And so it, in a sense, is an illusion of sorts, but it's something that we created, but it's not truly an illusion. It's really happening. Yeah. So I agree, and I think that's exactly what it is. And we're what for whatever reason we are not able to put things together, so we don't know exactly why we're here or things like that. But in this moment, exactly where we are is our own responsibility. And so I think that's sometimes hard to understand and hard to accept. And it seems like, well, no, because there's things that have happened to me, but the way we perceive life and the way things are somewhat our illusion, yet we've manifested it. So that being said, food, I feel like, has always been the biggest mystery barrier because it's a need. It's not like you can go cold turkey off of food. You know, that's not going to serve you. And so then you hear about good foods and bad foods and clean your plate and be a good girl, you know, and then we want to please people and we want to create good feelings. And so that starts happening with the way that we're fueling our body. And then you've got outside marketers that are marketing their product to you, especially in the United States, because everything kind of comes down to, you know, someone's got to get paid for that. And we're so far removed from our food source that it becomes a whole kind of an emotional thing. And so it's one of the most confusing things. Can anyone relate to that or have a story around food that you think you may have kind of brought with you or that you have to be conscious of?
So,
Yeah, I have to eat everything that's on my plate no matter what, because that's the way I was taught.
So that is that something you're aware of? So 90% of change is awareness, I believe, truly. So Shelley, that's amazing. How do you, well, first, how do you know that that you
How
think of
do
things that way? And
how
two,
do I
how do
know
you,
that? As far
yes,
as me having to eat everything that's on my plate?
yes.
Because my dad instilled it in me when we sat down. My dad was a highway patrolman at the time, and my mom did daycare in the home. And when she made food, you were expected to eat it. And if you dished it up and you put it on your plate, you better be eating the whole thing. And if you didn't, you had it for lunch or breakfast or whatever the next meal was until it was gone. And that's just the way it was. So if you decided you weren't hungry and you had meat or broccoli or whatever it happened to be left on your plate, then it went in the refrigerator underneath plastic. And then the next meal that they had, you had to eat that first because it was wasteful.
Oh,
And it was, we were known that there wasn't a whole lot of money to put food on the table. And unfortunately, I raised my kids the same way. And looking back at it, that was not a good thing. Um, and now my kids retaliate. My oldest son does the same thing, but my daughter is totally opposite. She just goes and says, you know, if you can't eat it, you can take one thing off your plate and you have to eat the rest, but it's only one thing. So if it's like green beans you don't like, you can take all the green beans that's off your plate, but you have to eat the rest of it. And she's selective that way.
okay.
And
And
I feel
so,
and I feel terrible for making my kids do that.
don't feel terrible
well,
because that's how we were trained.
yeah,
That's
no shame. I mean, I
it,
understand why. Yeah.
right. So it's interesting. Can I speak?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Um, you know, I agree. I think a lot of us were told, "Oh, eat everything on your plate." Oh, the saying that something about other countries, right? Like I don't remember what it was, but like
Yeah, there are people starving in Africa.
yeah, that what yes, that one. Um, just the whole and for me, I was body image for my whole life. Like it wasn't even like I was a chubby child and my sister was really skinny. And I remember early on my mom like dieting her whole life. And then when I was at a certain age, I started dieting. And it's really such a detriment to our young kids. And it makes me so sad because even as an adult now, I'm dieting. Like I've dieted my whole life until, whatever. And my daughter, who now paying for $4. Sorry, my daughter just texted me. My daughter now was just recently diagnosed with an eating disorder, and she's 15. And it just breaks my heart. Like this is what is happening to our young people, and we need to teach them. We need to stop dieting. Okay, that was just
Yes.
my soapbox. Sorry.
That was very, very good, both of you. I mean, I just think that connects to exactly what I'm talking about is it's an illusion, you know, yet you basically it becomes your reality. And so, Shelley, I do have questions about this nausea around eating and finishing your food and eating your food. Like, how do you think maybe it has nothing to do with the stomach acid at all, but it could, because physiologically, but you could have created that. But like, that starts to like, I'm curious, is there some sort of mindset around that? Like, that's just some food for thought. And Laura has her hand up. So, yeah, girl, go ahead.
Um, I think it damaged more than just I don't know, the image that you should eat everything that's on your plate, or people are starving in New Guinea or Africa or whatever country you want to put out there, because I've been to Africa and believe me, not everybody is starving there. um, but it also brought on other things like I don't want to eat at all, or maybe I should just binge on this until it's gone. I had such a terrible time growing up with all of that um, I weighed 98 pounds in high school. I am 5'9" and I weighed 98 pounds in high school. So, I mean,
So you're the opposite.
it brought on so much of other things that it shouldn't have. And I'm not blaming my parents. I mean, that's the way it was. You just didn't have money. You had one income and you didn't have money, and you scrimped and saved and you did whatever you had to do. And I get that. And when I became an adult and had kids and went through a divorce, I was scrimping and saving. So what's your normal response? You need to eat that. I work really hard to put that food on that table. I get that. So, and then you put that guilt trip on whoever or yourself or whatever. So then you ration your food or you do whatever you have to do to make it better. And or being skinny as all get out in high school, I got teased because I looked like skin and bone. And I don't know. It's just lots of things out there that are not nice
My
and not
daughter.
fair. And it's just, I don't know.
I think another thing that we fall into also in relation to food and mindset is that like the scarcity versus abundance mindset. So I know I have a lot of clients who grew up where food was, well, one of two things or even both. A, it was used as a reward system. You got an A, let's go have ice cream.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Or B, it became um we have very limited amounts of food,
Is it choppy?
It is,
especially like a
yeah.
Just
certain
making
type,
sure.
on government assistance or something like that. Once the
I
oh,
don't even
is
know
my
who's talking.
connection not great?
Yeah, it's
Mm,
choppy a little sometimes.
okay.
Is that Tiffany
Mm,
talking?
Yeah.
it is.
Are you having weather there?
No, but I'm actually outdoors, and
Ah,
so other buildings may be interfering with me.
gotcha. I thought maybe you were having the rare chance in Vegas where you're actually having, rain or something.
No, not yet, not yet. Maybe, but we'll see. Um, but if you think of like a mom who, gets government assistance or something like that, where the funding runs out towards the end of the month and food becomes scarce, you know. Um, so those people will usually grow into adults who buy all they can when they can, every time they can. They don't buy a bag of chips, they buy three. They don't buy a package of Oreos, they buy six, because now they can and they can control what's coming into their house and how much is available. And that becomes an issue too. That is both mindset and food relationship oriented.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Laura, did you have something you wanted to?
Share?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. So it's not food, but I wanted to share an experience I had with an ad. And the ad was for some wrinkle remover product or something. I don't remember what the product was, but the experience was so compelling. And that was this ad for this wrinkle cream took this woman who was nice to look at to begin with, but in 37 seconds, photoshopped her into this perfect image. And that's the image they were using to promote their wrinkle cream. And it's not the wrinkle cream that struck me so much, but it's all of advertising. When they can Photoshop something to make it look perfect, but that's totally unrealistic, and the impact that that product is going to have is never going to get you to that image. It was like, wow, that was really eye-opening, right? And so it's with anything. And this is marketing to your, Andrea, to your point about, how products are marketed, food products, any product, medicine, whatever, makeup, clothes, whatever. But that image that is used to promote that product isn't real.
Right.
And
And that's, yeah.
and in 30, it was just mind blowing, because whatever the lesson was that I was watching, right? This lesson shows taking this woman who is very nice looking, photoshopping her in 37 seconds to be this perfect image. And it might sound really simple to you guys, but it totally blew my mind in terms of what marketing does to get us, or to get me to buy products. And now it's like, oh, I know what they've done. So now I have the awareness that I don't feel like I get sucked into the, I don't get sucked into the belief that they're trying to get me to buy into. And you could say the same thing with food and everything else, I think, but that was,
Yeah.
as I
How
said, that
about
was mind blowing.
all these programs with the beautiful, amazing, who they did all her makeup, you know what I mean? And then she's doing something with her body elsewhere, and then they're drinking wine nonstop. Like that just drives me
Mhm.
crazy, because I'm like, that woman would be fat, because I remember, what was I watching? It was just one of those, they were two really good friends. It was a Netflix kind of fun show, but like I see it so often where, drinking is just, you have this high career woman, who's perfectly shaped, and then she's drinking whiskey every night. It was a lawyer show I watched, or bourbon, and it looks so sexy and stuff. For one, I don't like bourbon. I'm like, that is not sexy, and I'm not putting down bourbon. Like I get it. Some people like high end whiskeys and bourbon, but It's just the way it looked on the show, it just kind of gets fed to you. And you also see the smoking now in these older shows. And, it's just interesting because, yeah, you start to believe like drinking's fun. Like wine makes things funner. And I do like wine too. So I'm not like, not, I do drink. But I'm just like the way they do that, it's interesting and it makes us start to think about it that way. And so it becomes kind of like even if you're aware of it, you still have trouble. It still kind of gets subconsciously sold to us. And so, it's like, can we just like dissect everything? Probably not. But like, you're right, Laura, like looking at that, it's like, this isn't even a real woman, So then now when I look at my bags or my, wrinkles, or if I have rolls a little bit on my back, or whatever, it's not, I'm gonna go, oh, that's not what I really like, or that doesn't look good. So it's just interesting, yeah, how that all starts. So yeah, I mean, it's all stories based off of something we see at some point or hear, adopt. And so what's cool though is we have the ability to dissect all of these things and choose our own belief in free nature, like decide, because I think there's ego roles and then there's free nature roles. And so free nature is who we
I
are
had an
created to be.
MLM.
Tiffany? Uh-oh. I think she just, no, she's here. Now it muted.
Weird. Can you hear me?
Andrea, say that again. We have
We
free.
have free nature and bound nature. So
I'm sorry, free nature, and what was the second one?
bound nature.
Bound.
Yeah. So bound is, really the belief of these stories. And so, for whatever reason, I had one that I called Sam Scarce. And I realized when Sam Scarce showed up, um, she would work. She would work no matter what. She would be freaked out. She'd be paralyzed. She felt like hopeless. And it was this ego role that I stepped into when things didn't necessarily go my way. And it was just a whole kind of like spiral. And I would live in Sam Scarce for days. And I spent 90% of my time doing things based off that ego role. But free nature, Andrea, is provided for. She's a good leader. She loves herself, and that's how I really want to live. And so I had to recognize that found nature story though first, and that even showed up with food, like you said, like you won't buy those strawberries or whatever, because you're like, well, what if I don't make that money next month, or what if this, and then you start getting really scared. So Sam Scarce created a lot of issues for me that I didn't have to really go with. She was kind of created from childhood. And so I was able to see that and say, you know what? No, I can be my free nature self, which is trusting the process, knowing I'm going to be provided for. I don't have to work all the time. So it was just a really interesting, freeing kind of thing. But first, I had to see Sam Scarce before I could create that. I missed something in the chat. Tiffany said, I had an Optavia and a Beachbody sales rep use my progress pics they found online to promote their program. Oh, that's not true either. That's terrible. But yeah, so there's these ego roles that basically we can live in or not live in, like clean your plate, probably was part of the Sam Scarce ego I lived in for a long time. Does that sound weird, or does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
And I have it, so in my book, let's see. So I do a lot of talking about it in my book. So this is more about, I wanted to write a book that talked about that business is not an A to B journey. It's A to minus A to downward to upward. I mean, it's constantly back and forth. You're going to get batted around. Things happen in it. And so understanding you also see life as you create life in your mind. So the more I created one of scarcity, the more that showed up for me until I decided I didn't want that anymore. But I had to see all of kind of the things holding me back. And so that this book talks a lot about that. So I went from being like, everyone told me I was a teen mom, I was, never going to amount to anything. And then I did a lot of things based off of like, I want to prove everyone wrong. And so that also became an ego role. So it's just interesting because you end up achieving things for your dad who's not even here anymore. And you're kind of like, well, what am I doing this for anymore? So it all kind of evolves. So it's really about getting down into the thoughts that you have when things aren't really flowing. Meaning, if you continue to kind of say, I want to really clean up my diet, I want to feel better, but then, you notice like, I'm just not eating enough, or I can't do that, or this feels so hard. Those are all kind of red flags for maybe it's an ego role that you're doing it out of and not out of your free nature self. So, a lot of times I know Sam Scarce shows up in my heart, so I can feel it in my body first. And so then when I feel that heaviness, and some of us might get it in our hips, our neck, it kind of lives there. So I take a moment to just recognize and think about what I'm needing, or if I'm stressed, or what it's about, because these ego roles don't show up like 0 to 60. They start with like a comment from your, friend who says, oh, what are you eating? Oh, you're going to eat that? Something like that. Or, and they don't mean any harm, but like for you, it was kind of a trigger. And so maybe that happened on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, you hopped on the scale and it was 3 pounds up. And you're like, oh my gosh, so then suddenly you just start kind of going back into this scarcity role, or this role of like failure, whatever it is. And so you have to kind of think, okay, when did this start? When did I start feeling this way? Was it something someone said? And kind of stop, think, and breathe. Because if you can kind of figure out where it came from, you can start to, fact check it. So then you kind of own it. So basically, you say, okay, yep, I'm not feeling good right now. I'm going to sit with it though. Like, I'm not going to push it away. I'm not going to go do something. I'm not going to eat, or I'm not, whatever it is. Like, I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to look at it and just kind of try to get outside your body, outside yourself, and observe it and not judge. So you're not going to love it. You're not going to hate it, because I've spent a long time hating that ego role, and that actually kept me more stuck. So the more I hated that I reacted that way and overworked and felt bad and was triggered, that also gave it more power. So the more I could just kind of like see it, be with it, and just go, yeah, that's right. I got that. Okay. Then I kind of check in, like, what do I need? Take a look at your needs in the moment, and being really curious and kind, like, I wonder if that happened, if I felt like the scale needed to go down, and, maybe that's what kind of set me off. And now I have these feelings. And, is it really true that I'm not doing good, or I didn't do the work? Be really curious about it and think about like what you want, what you're craving. And instead of judging, just observe and watch all your none statements. So, none statements are basically like, I can't, I won't, it's so hard, all of that. And just kind of observe, and then try to kind of combat it with just the complete opposite. So that's been very helpful to me. And I know this is time consuming. I know it's kind of not the, feel like I don't have time for all this, but I'm telling you, you'll be so happy you did the work. And then, kind of think about like, what can I do to encourage and nurture myself right now? Because so many times we want to punish ourselves. We hate that thought. We, want to get there right now. We're actually, we're being competitive. So like, you're thinking of your friend who asked you like what you were eating, and she looked pretty damn good. And you're like, huh, great. Now I don't look like her. I'm never going to look like her. I'm never going to be, you know, that size or whatever. And so this basically just reiterates that. Anybody have Any
I think
thoughts about
I
that?
think that's the hardest part is comparing yourself to other people when you know that you will never look like that. You're not built like that. Your makeup's not like that. Your whole life is not like that. And when you find that perfect picture of someone that you think, oh God, if I just looked like that, life would be perfect. It's so unrealistic, but yet we do it all the time. And it kind of reminds me of um, I've lost a lot of inches with all of this, but I haven't lost any weight. And
Yeah.
it's like I finally had to have a talk with myself and go, is it really that big of a deal if you didn't lose the weight, Shelley? Part of me says yes. I still would like to have that magic number on my record, but I look really good. And every once in a while, I just have to take a picture of what I look like to remind myself that I look really good. I should just not be so hard on myself. And maybe that person over there that I think is perfect, that I really, really, really like to look like, she's got the perfect breast size, she's got the perfect hips, she's got the perfect face. Maybe isn't all that perfect. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe her life's just not as perfect as what I'm making her out to be.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you thought that about somebody? I mean, I'm going to come back to the scale because I think the scale, I just know, oh my gosh, it just reminds me of that Presidential Achievement Award. Did anyone have to do that in school? Like everyone had to do the bent arm hang and the all
Oh,
the competitive stuff.
I
I
hated
mean,
it because
talk
I
about
couldn't do it.
right. Talk about triggers. I mean, there was that. And then there was also going to the doctor and having the scale. And I remember, like that, like girls at school would talk about it. Like in ninth grade, I remember this one girl, my friend, her name was Tiffany. She was really tall and she weighed like 120 or 115 pounds. And I weighed like 135. I was 5'3". Yes, I had maybe a little bit of chubby weight on me, but I remember talking about weight. And then I said, well, I weigh 120. I lied. Or I weigh 115. And then these boys were laughing. They're like, no, you don't. And then after that, I went on Slim Fast. I did all these things. And then I became super obsessed with the scale. I too got under like 96 pounds or something. My clavicles were like sticking out. I was proud of myself when I didn't eat certain days. I was like, good job. And then I ended up eating a whole pack of donuts in one sitting and so hungry. It was a whole like thing. But that scale, I mean, it still makes me so mad because I'm not saying that you don't see progress when the scale goes down, but there is something called composition we know now. And I'm going to pull out my fat blob. So this weighs the same as a pound of muscle, which is probably about this big. You know what I'm saying? It's much more dense. And so if you're burning body fat and your health is going up and you're gaining muscle, it's like putting money into your savings account where you can live off the interest. So, Shelly, you doing that work now could equate to you burning more body fat with more higher amounts of food in the future. So, you're setting yourself up for success. But because the scale didn't go down, yeah, that can really play with your head, and I think it's a real issue. It's hard. I have some clients who the scale drops, but I don't see the inches as much. So, it's like, I don't know what I'd prefer. That is something that you have to dig deeper on, for yourself, like you have. Like, do I want to look good and be healthy and look better and know that's in the right direction? Or do I want the scale specifically to go down? Because we could starve you, we could, do some things. I'm sure we could get it to move. But your mood would be affected, your hormones would be affected, and overall, it's probably not what you want. But that's tough. Yeah, I totally get that, Shelly, because I weigh more now than I did, 20 years ago when I was like the same size or like what do you call that? Skinny fat or whatever. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't like going to the doctor because they just talk to me about it every time. And I'm like, I don't know, dude, I have like abs, just leave me alone. And I'm healthy. But yeah, my scale weight is not anything to brag about for sure.
Hey, Andrea,
Um, Yeah.
Andrea? I a thought just occurred to me, right? And there is a point in our lives, and I'm certainly way past that point where, and I find this interesting, right? Is um, just because someone says something doesn't make it so. And even, and especially in my world, people who are experts or authorities in their field, um, right? And I think this comes to this idea of turning the other cheek, and that there are so many other perspectives. I think it's what I'm looking forward to with the program is getting my foundation really firm in my belief, my thoughts about myself, my body, and those things. And just because a doctor says something doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right thing, right? So this idea, just because someone says something doesn't make it so, and especially these authority figures, right? I think the nice thing about getting older is that we can get more open to hearing things and then saying, yes, I accept that, or no, I don't. And so to your point, right, that pesky bathroom scale, right, is we get to decide for ourselves whether it's the scale that we're going to let dictate our behavior, or the idea of how I feel in my clothes, which right now I feel horrible, which I don't like. So it's more, my goal is to feel better in my clothes and to look better. And the scale becomes secondary to that. So it's an interesting thought process and conversation, I think, around that. So thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it is. It's just one of the I mean, I've stayed up nights thinking about this, like the scale, like, because it'll go up 3 pounds in a day or two based off hormones or water weight. And I've actually done a few videos where I chug a couple of glasses of water and hop back on, like in exactly what I drank, the scale goes up that much. So that's another thing too. We're asking you ladies to drink more water. And, if you hit your water goal, it's not going to immediately bring the scale down. Like it's like kind of overall, it's facilitating fat loss. And so that's truly what we do want in a keep muscle. And so that can also drive it up. And, if you get a poor night's sleep, or, like they say, if you've had like some kind of sodium, we really should do our check-ins on Fridays, I feel like, too, because doing them on, what day do we do them? Sundays? It's like, oh my gosh, everybody's in the middle of like, family stuff, and you might eat out. We do our date night those weekends. So that can also drive the scale up a little bit too. So, and then, like I said, I have certain clients who, yeah, they have less muscle mass. And so they're burning fat, and like they do see the scale go down. And then I have others like you, Shelly, who don't. So it's such an individual journey. And Steph says, yeah, agree, Friday. I don't think we would mind if you checked in Friday, honestly, if you just skipped to Sunday and did Friday. So you can do that, ladies, if you want. Just don't expect a check-in response until Tuesday. But still, yeah, so it's just interesting, like you're not going to have the same journey as the other person, so it kind of brings in that whole comparison thing too. Like my best friend, she's a CFO. She weighs 130 pounds. I think we're about the same size. So she just lost like 10 pounds, like that. I'm pretty lean, so but I still weigh 152 pounds, and like 160 to me is like kind of normal, which is weird. So yeah, it's so different. And everyone who comes in has such a different body. And so that's where you could never, it's kind of like our unique self. Like certain people love creativity and art. Like I think we're all creative, but they love art and they love certain movies and they have certain interests and they're drawn to, cooking, or, like my son wants to do Muay Thai boxing. Like I don't want to do that, but it's cool that we all have these thoughts and things we're drawn to, and that's what makes us like our snowflake, like our individual fingerprint on this world. And so the more we can tap into that with your body and food and have you feel good for you, that's what I really want, and that's what I think we all really want. And so, being able to, some people want to do yoga, some people want to lift weights, some people want to scream into a pillow. Some people love doing the 5-minute walk. Like some people enjoy being filled up to talk to someone. So it's really about finding what works for you. I don't feel as though there's a one size fits all. I also kind of wanted to talk about hunger scale because sometimes we think we're hungry when we're thirsty. And I have a client who lost 100 pounds, and she was like, you know what, this is what I do for my eating is basically I have certain rules around it. One is water first, two is then her protein, then she waits to see if she's actually hungry, and then she does for a fruit or a veggie. So basically, she kind of structures her meals that way. So that would go good, Shelley, with what you're doing, is, kind of check in because sometimes we're not really hungry. We're eating from hunger, or it could be emotional stress or boredom. Level two is you might be a little hungry. You want a salty snack. You're not genuinely hungry for a meal. So maybe wait and hang on, plan, prepare your next meal at that point, get excited until you're more at that level three, like truly hungry. It's time to eat what you really want. Strong hunger signals. Like a lot of ladies come in and are like, I'm not hungry at all. I'm not hungry. And so they've kind of lost their either conscious ability to cue, the hunger cues are gone, or the metabolism is a little bit low. So, being able to know your stomach might be growling, you feel like a small energy dip, then go eat, enjoy your food, but then if we get to level four, where you get that hangry, and my husband's guilty of this one, I can say he's so fun. I'm like, are you hungry? Because man, you're crabby right now. And he's ravenous, we'll go out on our date night, and I'm like, he just can't wait to get to the restaurant to order the food, and I'm like, it's really not about the food, is it? Like, it's about our time together. Like, could you eat a snack? Like, could you eat a little more at lunch this day or whatever? And I've done it too. Like, just didn't eat in the morning. I'm starving, and so then I'm cranky and irritable, and our blood sugar is, probably down and out. And so just kind of being aware that you want to really be at a level three and then eat a good sized meal, and structure it with, have 2 glasses of water before you eat, then have your protein because then your blood sugar is going to balance more, and then have fruit or veggie, and just kind of follow that rule of thumb. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Cool. Okay, so I've got no minutes. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a little homework if you want it. We're just going to write ourselves an apology letter. We can also save this for next week and do it together. Does anyone have a preference?
To do it, do we meet every Thursday like this?
Yeah, every
Oh,
Thursday.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we could do this together and just take some time out, and I mean, I'd kind of like to do it with you guys, and then we could share if you want. So it's just more about, apologizing for all the mean and hurtful things that you've said to yourself. So if you feel compelled and you're like, Andrea, I need this today, like I want you to do it, or this week. But if you're okay, we could do it next week together. It's totally, I'm game for whatever. Um, Steph says, I love this idea. Good. Okay. Well, good. I'm glad that I love seeing you guys. I always feel like I'm talking to myself a lot of times. So I'm like, I don't know what they need. I don't know how to, I don't like talking at people. Telling is not selling, right? Like, I want to hear what you all need. So this is really cool. So next week we'll do this, and then we'll kind of talk about some other stuff too. But I don't want to keep you guys over. And she said she's multitasking. All right. Okay. Any final thoughts or questions before we jump off today?
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Yay. I'm so glad. Thank you for coming, Laura. It's really nice to see you and just Yeah, I know
You
what
mean during
everybody's.
nap time after having to get up at, early in the morning?
I love you. I love it. Yes, nap time is amazing. So if you guys are nappers, I want you to go for it. Looks like Steph is shopping. Are you at Costco? Oh, get me some pecans. I read this study about pecans.
Oh,
Like they can
really?
change your life. Yeah, an ounce of pecans a day is like
Ooh, I will
change
get some
some
pecans.
things. Get
Oh,
some. You can make pecan butter too if you grind it.
well, I
That
had the
that would
most,
entail
I
I
that
had
would
the
need
entail
most,
some
me to
turkey.
work.
If you could pick that up for me, I'll be at Costco later, but if not, I need some turkey. So
Laura, where do you live?
Redwood City, California.
Yeah, you're a way far girl.
Well,
Shelley,
my
where do you live?
Costco, we shop at Costco like people shop at normal stores. So I'm very grateful. It's probably 2.5 miles away. And we have our staples. Turkey is one of them, and there's one piece in the house, so I need to run over and get some. So
Cute.
Shelley, where do you
Uh,
live?
no, I was just gonna say Costco
Shelley?
reminded me of a friend at work, is very diet conscious. She's had a lot of health issues and stuff, and she makes the most amazing desserts, and they're healthy. The last one we had was, uh, it's made out of dates. She makes the crust and
Ooh, I
everything.
love dates.
I like them too. I never used to, but I really like them now. And she made pecan pie in a bar form out of dates and nuts, and I can't remember what honey I think was in it. Um, but it wasn't over sweet like your pumpkin or like your pie is. It was the most awesome thing.
Hmm.
It's like I sat
Yum.
and savored my bar that was like an inch by an inch. An inch the other day when we had our salad bar at work. I was like, oh, this is so yummy. So yeah, she's got tons of recipes, Snicker bars,
I,
pecan bars, all these things that she makes out of dates. And so I'll have to try and get recipes from her and share them. They're really, really good.
I would love
yeah,
that. I
please
love
do that.
I love Andrea's cookie dough one. It's a delicious that you
It
posted in
is
the group.
good.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed.
It is good.
where
Okay,
do
I
I
also want to
find
share
the
with you guys.
recipes?
So those are in your resources. So I'll make sure that you have my favorite cookbook because I made a cookbook, and then that way you can use those, Laura.
Great, thank you.
So
Yeah, and then I
can you
also
buy
have this. What?
that cookbook in personal? I mean in a hard form, not
You
on the internet.
could. You could for $17, but it's not a hard one, no. So
Yeah.
you get it for part of the program. Also, I want to do some dry brushing with you guys next week. So, especially you, Shelly, I do wonder if you have some lymphedema, some excess like inflammation. So we're going to talk about that too. Because that can be really frustrating, and there's no diet in the world that's going to get rid of that. So
Right.
I
I'll
think
tell
I
you.
do.
Okay, we're gonna do some dry brushing,
All right,
some
does it matter what? Because
compression.
I
Huh?
have a brush. I have an old brush. It's fine, right? Like it's a dry brush.
As long as it's not too hard. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
then we
have
can
one.
do it together. Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks,
Well, I love
ladies. Have
you,
a great
ladies.
weekend.
Thank you.
Bye,
Okay.
ladies.
Have a good
Bye.
weekend.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
You too. Bye.